so we filmed like our first take of it. And I was looking all over the place. One of the things I remember you always taught me as a kid was like it can feel uncomfortable like staring at someone's eyes. So
Hmm.
the trick is to look at like the bridge of their noses. So like I just need I need a camera with a nose on it, and that'd be great.
Welcome everyone to this week's Surprise We Both Love Movies. This week, my oldest son will be joining me in appreciation for Father's Day, which is this Sunday. So this week we're going to focus on father and son movies and which ones are our favorite and why we love them so much. So go ahead, Isaac, why don't you go ahead and share your first movie, father and son movie with our audience?
Well, that's a fantastic idea, Dad. And speaking of a movie that's fantastic, it's Captain Fantastic with Viggo Mortensen. You really get to spend time with this family as a huge tragedy happens in their life, and you see Vigo's character Ben living in this wilderness with his like seven children, and as they leave from there to go on, what they have to for the movie, you really get to see the dynamics of both of how like the children are raised, how they feel about it, and also their place in this world, which I think is very interesting. And you also get to see you get to see a good balance of both the father son, father daughter, and even like father to father relationship in it. And it's just an excellent movie, especially if you're a fan of the guy who plays Aragon from Lord of the Rings. That's this guy. You got to see this movie.
I have to check it out. I've never seen it, so you definitely gave me something to watch. My first movie is from 1991, and it's called Boys in the Hood. And that's one of my favorite dad son movies because Lawrence Fishburne plays a character with a unique name, Furious Styles. I mean, how cool of a name is that? Now his life is nothing like mine. There's no parallels in that life in South Central LA and mine, or my father's who grew up in Kansas and I grew up in Phoenix. But the chemistry that the two characters that you get to see and share with them, and how his father guides his life through parables and stories and shares without being too heavy-handed, really kind of was kind of neat. It was kind of unique because the character is a single father. His wife and him have separated when he was about 5 years old. And you see this kid grow up from, being 5 or 7 years old, and then you see him again and he's a teenage boy. And you just really kind of, it was a really cool way that they explained and shared how these two people grew together, and how as a father raising a boy in that tough environment, how he was able to do it and do it with a lot of integrity and a lot of ethics to kind of make sure that his son grew up and actually became a positive influence on this world. So that's my first movie. What's your next one?
For a second movie, let's talk about worlds because there are many in galaxies far, far away. Because Star Wars Episode 6 is such a great father son movie. I think more than any of the other films, um, it really does delve into family a lot more. You get to see this person who was a kid in Episode 1, and now, like, at this point, he's a pretty terrible person. Like, he's done like war crimes upon war crimes, but at the end of the day, like Luke knows that despite all those terrible things you do, like in real life, you'd be canceled. But despite all those things, Luke knows that like there's light inside of his father. His father isn't entirely evil. There's good in him. And to see him push so hard for that and even get angry that like this is the situation, like I think it's such a great scene. And it's really like I think the reason why people go back to watch episode 6.
Yeah, I think that's a good. You have a different view of it because you saw it in a different, time. So it's interesting to hear you talk about it like that, because it was very a short story of redemption. But the way that you saw those movies, it's a long version. You get to see Anakin all the way from when he's a kid till when he becomes this very evil thing. And so you're right. There's a lot of redemption in that, and that's a really good father.
Mhm.
That's a really great father son story. Uh, Speaking of redemption, my next movie is from 1998, actually, and it's He Got Game, and that's a
90,
Spike Lee
98.
movie. It's a Spike Lee movie which stars Denzel Washington and NBA future Hall of Famer, or Hall of Famer already, Ray Allen. And it's a story where this father, his name's Jake Shuttlesworth, he does something and he like is separated from his family. It's something really bad, and everyone's
Hmm.
against him, and he ends up in jail. And as a last ditch effort, his son, like he works with his son. His son loved basketball as a kid, and he starts working real hard, and he gets really good at it. And then you cut forward to the future. His son's in high school. He's trying to figure out where he's going to go to college, and now his father is in jail. And because the governor wants to make sure that this all-star recruit goes to his alma mater, he lets Jake Shuttlesworth, or Denzel Washington's character, out to recruit him to get in touch with his son and get him to go to his alma mater for a reduced sentence. And it is just a great story. It's really
Ooh,
good. It's
that's
very compelling. And it's really intense because I don't feel like there's a lot of movies that really capture Black fatherhood very well. But this movie, he's just, it reminded me a lot of my dad trying to push me. We both had a love of basketball. And so he was always harder on me on physical sports and things. And that's kind of Denzel Washington's character on his son. He's really pushing him, pushing him, pushing him because he wants him to accomplish his dreams. And he, when he loses his son and he loses his family, he doesn't, he hopes to be able to get to connect with his son again and let him know that, you know what, I poured all this love into you and I just need this one thing. But his son is just, he's so against him and so still angry for things that happened in the past. And it's whether or not, it comes down to whether or not he's going to be able to forgive him or let it go or do what he wants to do. He's at the crossroads of his life and he's trying to figure out, do I want to do something to help my dad or I want to do something for me and all the work that
yeah.
I've done? And whether or not he's trying to realize whether or not his dad played a part in who he is and who he became, or if he's just somebody that's caused heartache and scorn in his life. So that was my second pick. Go ahead, Isaac, your last pick.
Last pick. Honestly, okay, this movie, I feel like I've seen bits and pieces of it all throughout my life. More so of its sequel, which I'm not a huge fan of. But recently I decided, this would be a great opportunity to watch a movie. And this movie is called An Extremely Goofy Movie. And now let me tell you about an extremely goofy movie. It's such a good movie. It starts off almost like the end of a regular movie, right? The kid Max, Goofy's son, like like has this big old like Michael Jackson performance at the school. He woos over the girl and gets a date with him. But ooh, the principal was mad, gave Goofy a call, and now he thinks his son's a deviant. And so they go on a fishing trip, interrupting all of Max's plans. And so you get to see kind of like it's interesting watching a kids movie where the kid feels like the mature one and Goofy is like the dorky dad trying to get him to do all the things that he did as a kid. And Max being like, well, like 12, 13, he's like, this is all stupid kid stuff. Come on, dad. Like but it's still such a like as goofy as it is at times, it's very heartwarming and touching. And I think one of the funny things I can relate to us is that the movie starts off where he's in a dream and he's with the girl he likes, and then he like transforms into his dad, and then he does the
That's pretty good.
and I was like, I remember there was a time where my laugh was exactly your laugh, and I was like, oh, that's just like me. So I really enjoyed that. That's a high recommend from me.
My last movie is one of my favorite father-son movies, and it's called A Bronx Tale, and that came out in 1993. It stars Robert De Niro and Chaz Palminteri, and it's a coming-of-age story that starts in the 1950s and expands into the 1960s. And so the little boy named C, his dad is a bus driver, and he lives in an Italian New York neighborhood, and it's
Mm-hmm.
really segregated at the time. And you learn that there's a gangster that's kind of runs things in this little part of New York, and his name is Sonny. And Sonny, he's kind of as he grows up, as C grows up, he starts to realize, hey, this guy, a lot of people are afraid of this guy, and this guy has a lot of opportunity. So if he starts to work for this guy and kind of does it behind his dad's back. His dad knows who this guy is and tries to kind of warn him, hey, you know what, you need to stay away from it. You need to stay away from this guy. You're not really realizing how dangerous he is and who he
Yeah.
is. But it's a great movie, and and he grows up. He goes from being like 7, 8 like years old, and then he flash forward, and he's about 15, 16 years old, and it's just there's a scene where like he's he that I never forget where C is about 16 years old, and his dad tells him, hey, you know what? Whenever you let a girl into the car, you always, shut the door, and you got to watch your door lock and see if she unlocks that door for you when you get around to your side of the vehicle. And if she does, she's a keeper. You hold on to her. But there's lots of little lessons like that in life
Hmm.
in this movie, and it's just a classic, an instant classic. So if you haven't had the opportunity, great movie, directed by Robert De Niro as well. A
Ooh,
Bronx Tale. Check it out. It's a great father son movie.
I didn't
So
even know he directed.
yeah, he did. He did. So I want to thank my son, my oldest son, Isaac, for joining
Hmm.
me on today's show. It's been great having him here
Yeah.
and his insight. He has a love for movies like I do. Obviously, we're from different generations and we have different views on
Yeah.
various movies, but at the end of the day, we both still love movies. So for this week, I want to thank everyone who's watched on YouTube, Facebook, who's listened on Audible and on Spotify. And thank you guys for watching. I'm Lamont Lovejoy,
I'm Isaac Lovejoy.
and we'll see you guys next time.